The morning sun had barely broken over the small suburban town when the sound of a kettle whistling filled the tiny kitchen of a weathered white house at the corner of Maple Street. The same house Martha had lived in for almost 30 years, the same house where laughter had once echoed down the halls, where the scent of cinnamon rolls meant Saturday mornings, and where tiny handprints still faintly marked the doorframe leading to the living room. Reminders of a time when her son Ethan was small enough to swing from her legs and beg for just one more story, Mom, before bedtime. These days, the house was quiet, too quiet. The kettle's whistle was the loudest noise most mornings. Martha reached for her mug, hands trembling slightly as she poured the water over a tea bag, her mind wandering, as it often did, to the same unanswered question. How had the years between them turned so cold? Ethan hadn't been home in nearly 7 years. There had been phone calls, short, polite, distant, but the warmth that once came so easily had vanished like smoke from a blown-out candle. She'd watched the seasons change from that kitchen window, her heart aching every time she saw a mother walking her grown son to his car after a weekend visit. Martha never said it aloud, but she'd long ago memorized his last text. "I'll visit soon, Mom. Just busy right now." Busy had turned into years. When Ethan left for college, he'd been full of dreams. Business degree, bright city life, independence. Martha had been proud but scared. She had worked 2 jobs to put him through school after his father, Henry, had passed away unexpectedly. Henry's death had been the kind that split time into before and after. Before, the house was loud, alive. After, silence crept in and never quite left. Martha remembered the day of Ethan's graduation, how she'd saved every spare dollar to buy him a silver watch engraved with "Time will tell your story." He'd smiled politely but barely looked up from his phone. Somewhere between growing up and moving out, Ethan had learned how to live without needing her. Still, every Christmas she decorated the house, baked his favorite pecan pie, and left his old room untouched, a small museum of what once was. In the city, Ethan had built the life he always wanted, fast, full, and busy. He had an apartment overlooking the river, a job in marketing, and a girlfriend named Claire whose laughter filled their home. But whenever Claire talked about visiting family, Ethan grew quiet. He never said it aloud, but guilt followed him like a shadow. Sometimes, late at night, he'd scroll through old photos, him on his father's shoulders, him blowing out birthday candles while his mom clapped in the background, and wondered when exactly he'd stopped calling her. Every time he thought about reaching out, something in his chest tightened. What would he even say? Sorry, it's been years? Pride is a funny thing. It builds walls higher than distance ever could. One rainy evening, Claire came home holding a package. "This was at the door for you," she said, handing him a small box wrapped in brown paper. Ethan frowned. No one sent him mail anymore. He opened it to find the old silver watch, the one his mother had given him at graduation. A note rested beneath it, written in her careful handwriting. "It stopped working. Just thought you might want it back. Love, Mom." Ethan turned the watch in his hands, noticing how the second hand had frozen exactly at 12:01, as if time itself had paused. That night he couldn't sleep. He kept hearing his mother's voice, gentle and tired. "You can always come home." Weeks passed, but the image of that watch wouldn't leave him. Claire noticed. "Why don't you call her?" she suggested softly. "It's been too long, Ethan." He sighed. "It's complicated." But was it? Or had he just made it that way? One Sunday morning, he finally dialed a number. It rang once, twice, then her voicemail clicked on. He didn't leave a message. The next week, he tried again. This time, she answered, but her voice was frail, weak, nothing like he remembered. "Ethan?" she said, as if afraid to believe it was really him. He swallowed hard. "Yeah, Mom. "It's me." There was silence, then a sound that broke him. A small, shaky sob. "I didn't think you'd call," she whispered. "I almost forgot what your voice sounded like." They talked for hours that day, like two people learning each other all over again. She told him about her garden, how the hydrangeas had finally bloomed after years of trying. He told him about his job, about Claire, about how busy life had become. But beneath every word lay something unsaid: regret, forgiveness, love. When the call ended, Ethan promised he'd visit soon. This time, he meant it. Days turned into plans, plans into a date, but life, as it often does, intervened. A work crisis came up, Ethan postponed, then postponed again. Martha didn't complain, she never did, but each time her hope dimmed a little more. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees, she sat on the porch steps holding the silver watch, running her fingers over the engraving. "Time will tell your story." She smiled faintly. "I guess time's almost done telling mine," she whispered. That winter was colder than usual. When the flu spread through town, Martha caught it like so many others. At first, it was just a cough, then fever, then exhaustion that wouldn't lift. Her neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins, checked on her every few days, bringing soup and medicine. One night, Martha couldn't get out of bed. The next morning, Mrs. Jenkins called an ambulance. In the hospital, surrounded by white walls and quiet machines, Martha drifted between dreams and memories. Ethan's first steps, his laughter echoing down the hallways, his teenage grin. "He'll come," she murmured to the nurse. "My boy will come." Ethan didn't know. He was in a conference room 3 states away when the call came from Mrs. Jenkins. "Ethan, it's your mom," she said gently. "She's in the hospital. You should come." The world seemed to tilt. Within an hour, he'd packed a bag, left a voicemail for his boss, and hit the road. The drive felt endless, mile after mile of memories replaying in his head. The way she used to wave from the porch, the smell of her cooking, the sound of her laughter. He gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. "Hold on, Mom," he whispered. "I'm coming home." The next few weeks passed like a slow, heavy fog. The house felt bigger, quieter, and strangely hollow. Each corner reminded Sarah of her son, Adil. The laughter that once echoed through the hallways, the way he used to drag his shoes across the floor when coming home from college, tired but smiling. She had always thought love meant giving everything and asking nothing in return. But as she stood now, folding the same clothes she had ironed for years, she wondered if silence had cost her more than she realized. Adil, on the other hand, was caught in his own world, a world that was fast, dazzling, and merciless. His new job at a startup demanded long hours and constant availability. The city lights outside his apartment window never dimmed, much like the thoughts that kept him awake: guilt, pride, and confusion. He wanted to call his mother, to tell her that he missed the smell of home-cooked meals and her quiet humming during breakfast. But each night, the clock slipped past midnight and his courage slipped with it. One Sunday morning, Sarah received a message, not from Adil, but from his friend, Hamza. "Auntie, I thought you should know, Adil fainted at work yesterday. He's fine now, but please talk to him. He doesn't eat properly." Sarah froze. Her hands trembled as she tried to read the message again. She wanted to rush to him, but pride and fear tangled inside her heart. What if he still resented her for the last argument they had, when she had told him, "You've changed, Adil. You don't even sound like my son anymore." That evening, she sat in front of her phone, staring at his name on the screen. She typed, erased, and retyped. "Adil Betta, I heard you weren't feeling well. Please take care." Then, after a pause, she added one more line. "I miss you." Adil read the message hours later, while sitting in his car outside the office. He had just finished another 12-hour shift. Seeing his mother's message felt like someone had opened a window in a suffocating room. His eyes welled up. Without thinking, he called her. "I'm me." His voice was tired, yet soft. For a moment there was only silence. Then came the sound he missed the most. Her voice, trembling and full of warmth. Adil, Beta, are you all right? I heard... I'm okay, Ummi. Just overworked, I guess. You need to rest. You never used to skip meals. What's happening to my son? He smiled weakly. Life happened, Ummi. That short call became a bridge between two hearts that had drifted apart. It wasn't long before Adil started visiting home every weekend. Sarah would cook his favorite biryani. And though their conversations were still sprinkled with pauses and careful words, the warmth slowly returned. Then one Sunday morning, Sarah noticed something strange. Adil's phone kept lighting up with messages. She caught a glimpse of a name, Maya. When she asked casually, "Who is she?" Adil hesitated. "She's someone from work." Sarah didn't ask more, but that night, as she watched him from the kitchen, she saw how he smiled while texting, the kind of smile that once belonged to her stories and her lullabies. Her heart twisted, not in jealousy, but in the bittersweet realization that her son was truly growing away. Weeks turned into months, and one evening, Adil brought Maya home. She was polite, confident, and kind. She could see why her son liked her, yet something in her eyes carried a quiet distance, the kind of modern independence that Sarah respected, but feared. Over dinner, Maya said softly, "Adil told me how much you've done for him, Auntie. You must be proud." Sarah smiled faintly. Every mother is proud, but every mother is also afraid of losing her child to the world. The words lingered in the air like smoke. Adil looked down, uncomfortable. Maya reached for his hand under the table, and Sarah noticed. Her heart tightened again, not because of the gesture, but because she realized how small her world had become in comparison to theirs. As months passed, Adil and Maya's relationship deepened. They planned to marry, and while Sarah smiled through the ceremonies, something inside her began to fade. She felt like a guest in her own life, a quiet witness to a chapter she had once written, now rewritten by time and youth. One rainy evening, weeks after the wedding, Adil and Maya stopped by for dinner. Sarah had cooked all his favorite biryani, but her hands were slower now, her breath shorter. "Ami, you should rest. You don't have to do all this," Adil said gently. "I'm fine, Beta. Feeding you has always been my rest." That night, after they left, Sarah sat by the window looking at the raindrops chasing each other down the glass. A small smile played on her lips, though tears blurred her vision. She whispered softly, "He's happy now. That's all I ever wanted." The next morning, Adil's phone rang. It was his neighbor from his mother's street. "Son, you should come quickly. Your mother..." When Adil arrived, the house smelled of jasmine and chai. His mother was lying peacefully on the sofa, a faint smile frozen on her face, as if she had finally exhaled all her pain. On the side table sat an unfinished letter addressed to him. "My dearest Adil, if you're reading this, know that I never wanted to be a burden. I wanted you to fly, to live, to love freely. I sometimes worried that my love was too quiet, too heavy. But you were my world. Don't blame yourself for the distances that life creates. Some love stories are not meant to be loud. They're written in whispers between mothers and sons. Always remember, home isn't a place. It's a person who prays for you even when you forget to call. Love always, Ami." Adil sat there, unable to breathe. He pressed the letter to his chest and wept, not just for the loss, but for every unspoken word he had left unsaid. Months later, he visited her grave often, sometimes with Maya, sometimes alone. One day, he brought his newborn daughter and whispered, "This is Sarah, Ami, just like you." And as the wind brushed against his face, he could almost hear his mother's voice, soft, forgiving, eternal.